Well, this is a part 2 video where I'm attempting to get better at mini painting. Am I successful? Your guess is as good as mine. Greetings, good humans, and welcome to Tabletop Alchemy, where sometimes we finish up painting a mini that we didn't have time for in part 1. And we thank our patrons for supporting duologies. Spell check says that that isn't a word, but dictionaries do. So there. Duology. It's the second part of a duology. You can look that up in the dictionary. All right, we're just going to jump right in here where we left off, and I'm starting easy with a bit of Athonian camo shade on the axe halves here because it's a very simple and easy thing to start off with, and you know, something to get myself back on the train, so to speak. Now, this Citadel wash dries glossy or semi-gloss at best, and that's kind of a pain now that I've gotten used to the Vallejo Express colors, which dry really matte, and I actually really like that. I should probably pick up a few bottles of Vallejo Game Color washes just to see how they work. You know, any excuse to go to the FLGS, right? You know. So I'm putting some lightly reddish black in the bear's mouth here because, well, because I'm procrastinating getting on with the real painting. Happy? And after that, I still felt like procrastinating because I wasn't exactly sure how to proceed with the grand point of this painting session. So I thinned down some Coelia green shade to blue up the axe counterweight pommel things. I don't think axes have pommels, but you know, I don't know what the technical nomenclature is for this, but it's probably not even a real thing. Just a detail that looks cool, right? Which, you know, I mean, that's pretty standard for fantasy miniatures. Anyway, I then added some more red to the bear tongue before realizing that maybe the bear tongue should be black? I don't know. The point is, I'm wasting time. And I'm good at that. So, give the accolades where you're supposed to. Well, all that talk of procrastinating was just, you know, more procrastinating. So, let's finally get on to the axe blades, which are indeed the focus of this second part of this mini painting project. Now, from the beginning, I wanted to do some kind of glowing, heated center on the axes, and I thought maybe I'd even take another stab at non-metallic metal. We know how fun that was last time. But I discovered, you know, what you could learn from YouTube right away. Maybe don't try to learn too many things at once. It's like, you know, be nice to yourself. Maybe just try one new thing at a time. But this is Tabletop Alchemy, where we say, oh no, we're going to do everything the dumbest way possible. Get out of my way. So I started modeling the axe blades with some dark gray paint and a little bit of blue. I don't know why blue, I have no idea. Just vague things rattling around in my thought cage that I act upon without thinking through. I think what's really going on here is I don't really know where to begin, so I'm just sort of procrastinating in practice by fiddling around with paint. But then, there, I finally just started with the non-metallic metal attempt. As I mentioned, this is my second time trying this NMM technique, and I put down the bright highlight first, and then tried feathering it out with progressively darker grays. I think now in hindsight that maybe going all the way to black is the wrong thing to do. Another thing I probably could have learned, lickety-split, over on YouTube, but I didn't. I think the bottom value tone, the darkest value tone, should probably be, I guess, maybe dark gray at the darkest. Maybe I just need to like practice this a bunch on. I don't know. I just need to practice more. But regardless, I just keep on fiddling with the grays on my palette, and in my head, I'm trying to figure out how this NMM stuff is going to work with the hot glowy thing I want to do in the middle of the axe. And my thoughts are turbulent because, again, I don't really know what to do to achieve any of this. So, now that I've reached full frustration mode with the non-metallic metal stuff, I decided, okay, let's just try this glowing center thing. The only thing I knew for sure was I needed to start with white ink over the embossed center design things because I know we want the brightest parts of this effect down in all the recesses. Now, I also know that to really do this effect correctly, I probably need to use an airbrush. But I don't want to use an airbrush, and I'm stubborn and lazy. And I just don't want to do it because I'm not good at airbrushing yet because I don't practice because it's like a vicious circle. I don't want to do something because I don't know how to do it, but I know that I need to go practice it in order to learn how to do it, but then I don't want to do it because I don't know how to do it. It's a hamster wheel of pain. So anyway, this is me trying to feather out the white that I put down in the hopes of creating some sort of gradient like an airbrush would instantly create, again, if one was adept at using an airbrush. And I'm really just proving to myself that I have a long way to go in practicing making gradients and blends, and I lack both the time and possibly even the willingness to spend the appropriate time working properly on this sort of thing. A dry brush at this step would probably have been advantageous, and I mean, 100% a dry brush would have been the way to go, and I think I didn't try that because I was concerned that I didn't have a small enough dry brush for the area I wanted to affect, so I just spent a bunch of time trying to glaze some grays back over the harsh edges of the white ink, and eventually I just decided to move on. I put some yellow express color down in the middle area, and then mixed some orange into that yellow to blend it out, and then added more orange the further out it went. This is how far I got with this whole process that was half-baked at best in my head to begin with. So most of the problem is, my lack of experience here. And so, of course, I'm not going to be able to achieve the vague thing that's in my head. And the vagueness is probably the other bit of the issue here. I think I just need to start finding other painted minis that are an example of a thing I want to paint, and I need to just copy them to learn how to do certain things. So, of course, in the end, this is all just part of a learning process. A long, pain-in-the-ass learning process. Are there any processes that aren't pains in the ass? But anyway, I kept trying for a minute. I put a shiny edge on the non-metallic blade edge, and I even dotted and edge highlighted the top clamp thing on the axe head. And then I went on dotting and edge highlighting the counterweights at the ends of the axes just because they have like heavy sculptural details that are easy to do this on. I'm not even thinking about trying any non-metallic metal on these things because they are such weird shapes that I have no idea how to even approach them with a real NMM technique. I mean, come on, I can't even do a simple flat surface yet. I can't try this crazy over-detailed little thing here because, whatever. I shouldn't say can't, but, sometimes we say can't. And then I thought, correctly I think, that this upper axe detail should probably have some heat or object source lighting applied to it, so I glazed in some orange on the downward-facing edges of that detail stuff there, and then I took a break. And unsurprisingly, I've decided that I hate what I've created here. Yes, hate is a strong word. I know. I just don't like it. And I don't know if I can live with it. So I chalked it up as an experiment, but I didn't want to leave it looking like that. So I went onto YouTube and watched a couple of examples of lava blade painting and was like, okay, I think I can achieve that without an airbrush. And, that's the light at the end of the tunnel, right? I'm just painting a miniature. I'm not doing anything that is even remotely important to life. So, who cares if I've messed it up? Because I know one thing. I've got more paint. So I just painted over the entire second axe blade with ice yellow and a bit of white to give myself a new base to start from. And it was very satisfying. Now, while that dries, I painted the nose of the bear, which I think is supposed to be black, and also which I'm not going to bother to look up to see if I'm correct in that or not. This bear's just going to have a black nose. There it is. Simple. And now for a whole new try on the second axe blade. I put some yellow and orange express colors on the palette and then mixed up a middle color between the two, and I thinned them all down a bit with medium, and then some fun simple blending on the axe is in order. This is just standard easy technique with express or contrast type paints, right? Now here's the first axe blade and the new axe blade, and I like the new axe blade much better at this point. I think the next steps will really show us if it's going to work. But even just at this base level, I just feel better about this second attempt. So for the charring and blackening process, I basically used the same recipe I used on those wasps from a few videos ago. That was a weak snap, boy. Do it right, or don't do it at all. I'm starting with a mahogany brown, a reddish brown to stipple onto the edges and creep down into the main body of the axe. Now, this took a while because the sculptor of this miniature went over the top with all the design ridges and design elements they sculpted into the axes, but I just tried to keep to the edges that theoretically would be cooler than the molten core center of the axe, and this is just basically highlighting with progressively darker colors instead of lighter colors. I went in with black and did the final pass, a little more severe this time, and just danced around the edges, dabbing on more and trying to maintain a chaotic, random stippling approach to get the proper finish, you know, this sort of charred, textured look to all the edges. Now, I originally had no plans to try any OSL, or object source lighting, as I guess it's called, on this model, because that's another thing I've never tried. But the axe looked so bright that it just looked kind of goofy, and I thought I better try some OSL. And so again, man, let's just roll in another FFT experiment. So I grabbed a crappy little brush and tried some, I don't know why I was so clumsy with the dry brushing here, with some orange paint on those leather wraps. And yes, it absolutely felt alarming and kind of awful to paint over the painting I'd already done on those wraps, but you know, so be it. I took that quote-unquote OSL all the way up onto the bear's fist and even a bit onto the forearm bracer thing, and no, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm doing something, right? I mean, it's something, I think. Now, the yellow I used for this initial ham-fisted dry brushing OSL color thing is too greenish when it's on the model, and so I glazed some of the leftover mid-tone orange express color I had on the palette to try to tint that reflected light back toward like a matching color tone to sort of more match what the axe looks like. And then off camera, I painted up the other axe head to match, and then I took a moment to highlight up the icicles on the base. You can see here, the base has been dry brushed, but I failed to capture that bit on camera because I got in the dreaded loop of hitting stop on the camera when I thought I was hitting start, which is just one of the dumbest things to do, but it happens more often than I'm comfortable admitting. I shouldn't have said that. I used some Citadel light blue contrast color on the icicles because the Express color range doesn't really have a blue that's this light and saturated. Now, are these icicles looking a little bit over the top because of this achromatic blue stuff? Yeah. Is this a fantasy bear dual-wielding giant axes? Also, yeah. So, I'm going to put some snow down on the base, of course, so I put some really thin Coelia green shade on it to sort of blue it all up a little bit. Now, should this big chunk of rock, should it just have been a more natural looking gray or black stone? Probably, but I like the idea of this fantastic blue icy look sort of thing, and so I'm just trying it out. As we have illustrated prior, we can always repaint something. I even threw down a little bit of Agrex Earth shade just to model in some color variation. Just for fun and whimsy. I should sell whimsy in a bottle. Anyway, I then moved on to highlighting the icicles because doing that was also fun, and also, I didn't want to go back to stippling on that axe head just yet. I just eventually did that off camera later. Then I decided to try the OSL on this axe hand with a little more control, and I didn't dry brush it. I tried glazing with a very watered down orange paint. Honestly, I feel like I'm painting blind here. Like, I have no real idea on how to do this OSL thing. It's one of those things that seems so simple when you see it done well, and as a concept, I think it is simple, but in practice, I had really no idea how to even start. But hey, we're moving right along. So I took a couple of khaki colors and quickly put them down on the bits of exposed axe handles just to get some detail on those bits. And then I added some typhus corrosion to the steel plates on the apron. And then I realized I'd forgotten to paint the braided cord that's wrapped around the apron. It was still in this weird pinkish color left over from all the leather base coat stuff. So I just grabbed a yellowish brown and just put that onto it. And then while it was still kind of wet, I just used bits of the khaki color to dot a few highlights onto it. Now, the last time I was at the hobby shop, I picked up some of this special effects paint from the new Vallejo line, and it just seems to essentially be an alternative formulation of the Express color paint. And so I thought I would test it out. As Hoffman would say, why are you doing tests on the actual model you're painting? Why don't you have a test subject? And we all know my responses to that. Yeah. Anyway, I put some of this rust color down on those steel plates. My idea was that maybe a few more bits of orange on the main bulk of the model would be a good idea. And I dotted those plates with a little bit of Vallejo Game Color Silver, which is very bright, and just added a few tiny additional highlights to the steel plates. And finally, we're on to the base. Yes, this feels awesome. I have this package of 12 millimeter tall frozen grass tufts, and I can finally use some of that stuff now. Tufts. I can finally use some of those tufts now because these tufts are really tall compared to most miniatures. They're kind of a good size for this guy, but I also don't want to obscure too much of the front of this guy, so for the front one, I cut one of the tufts in half to be able to put a bit of it on the front of the base without being too distracting, theoretically. I used some super glue here so it would dry faster, and then I got out my 2 tubs of snow flock and used watered down white glue and went to sprinkling. And then my camera card filled up, so, you'll have to take my word for it that I put down some various types of snow terrain stuff, flock. There we go. That's our bear all finished up. I guess you could hear the hesitation in that line that I just said unconsciously. There's our bear all finished up. I guess I like him overall. I'm not sure about the fiery axes. I definitely need to practice this whole OSL thing more, and I keep thinking now that I see it here that I kind of wished I had darkened all of the leather apron stuff. Like the browns of the leather feel a bit too light in tone to me, and some darker leather would probably offer a better contrast, like against his fur. But you know what they say, we can always try again on the next one, or even go back to this one and do a part 3. I'm not going to do that. If I wrote down all the lessons I learned every day, I would run out of notebook pages weekly. So just like in part 1, the takeaway is the same. You can use paint to reset and retry any part of a miniature. Use that to your mental advantage. See ya.